Let's look at our conversations for today, and we'll be having a conversation about the presidential spousal allowances given to the first and second ladies. This is an attempt to formalize a certain allowance. We're looking at what happens next following the rejection and reimbursement by the first and second ladies. We'll also be looking at the Finance Committee of Parliament. They've recommended to discontinue advancing car loans to MP, a very heated topical conversation. It has been this week about that. We'll also try and look at the 5 million bribery claim against the Chief Justice and the NDC's quest to have the Chief Justice step aside, whether or not that's necessary. Also look at 68, the amount of money that was spent on past questions for senior secondary school students, whether or not it's justified. This is your show, Inside Pages. Let me introduce the guests to you right now. Those who will be joining us for this conversation. Edward Bauer is MP for Bongo. Ernest Henry Nogbe is MP for Ashaman. We also have Ni Amate, lecturer at the University of Professional Studies here in Accra. Benjamin Antiedu is a lawyer, legal researcher and author. And Niama Adi is an educationist and a fellow at the Center for Social Justice. We'll be joined by Kofi Asari. He's executive director at the Africa Education Watch. Remember that this conversation is streaming live on social media. Go to Metro TV Ghana on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube as well. And use the hashtag Inside Pages so that we can easily track your messages and share them on the show. Inside Pages is brought to you proudly by Appointed Time Printing Limited. We're grateful to Appointed Time for always holding our back. Stay with us. When we come back, we'll look at Reporters Block and we'll kickstart the conversation.
In Ghana and in Africa, there is only one place to look to get that luxurious design and decor for your offices and homes. Visit Jamila Home. We give you the climax of luxury wherever you find yourself. Presidential and executive office furniture, living room sets, dining set, stunning mirrors, adorable wallpapers, lovely king and queen size beds, valuable antiques and antique goods, beautiful chandeliers and more. Into the bargain, we provide caring customer service, prompt delivery service, skilled and artistic full house design and decor services, and free decor ideas for your space. Our products and service is unparalleled, boasting of top-tier clients all over the globe. Jamila Home, home of first-class quality furniture, beautiful chandeliers, and antiques.
Did you know that cloth handkerchief gets dirty and wet after wiping your sweat or blowing your nose with it? Keeping a dirty handkerchief in your pocket or bag is very unhygienic. Reusing it increases your chances of getting sick from germs. That is why I always use Flora disposable handkerchiefs. Flora disposable handkerchiefs is disposable, thus making it a more hygienic option. It's thick and very absorbent. With 10 tissues in a pack, Flora disposable handkerchief is better than a cloth handkerchief.
Mommy.
The Flora toilet roll, Flora multi-purpose paper towels, Flora table napkins, and Flora box tissues in a shop near you. For both purchases, call Delta Paper Mill on 0243 033 033.
Obia pe says AC. Trese, it will gold-plated things. Yet the copper pipes pa pebi na ye. Gasia, emfa or how piam roda sanibia, enegum. Enye dede, tanso a 4-in-1 filter system. 80 from a free mubano. Eye kroje. AC, ye the horsepower neto. Hisense kase eye 2.5 wa. Eye 2.5. Kululu pianim. Ye di abebiemo. Eye Hisense AC Super Promo. Date near 26 July. Akobim 8 August 2021. Upe Asia Efe. Na eche. Na chili. Na entry power. Eye Hisense AC. Comfort to yemi. 26 July. Akobim 8 August. Madam Hisense. Matiti Suse. Who? 5 years warranty. Eda Sutia. Hisense and Kwane to me yes amount. Hisense. Everyday prices for everyday people.
The search for a reliable partner in dealing with your utility deal in the sale of U-turn buses, genuine spare parts, its repairs and maintenance at a highly effective workshop with remarkable speed. We also have available the sale of Camel car batteries, Weichai and Kia spare parts, Zonton coaches and light-duty vehicles for everyday movement. Contact us on 020-000-0831 or 054-555-7500. You can also email us info@seautomobilegh.com or visit our website at www.seautomobilegh.com. SA Automobile, the pleasure of doing business with you is all ours.
Welcome back. It's now time to find out the latest news from the Metro Newsroom on Reporters Blog.
A total of 22 witnesses appeared before the Ejura Committee of Inquiry, out of which 3 testified in camera due to security reasons.
We took 3 days to review the evidence obtained by way of audio and video evidence. So in all, we have spent 12 days of examining the evidence. In all, we called 22 witnesses, out of which 3 of them testified in camera for security reasons. 19 appeared in public. We have so far received audio evidence, only 1. Video footage extended 117. Pictures in soft copy 555. Documentary evidence 8. Written statement 2. Then we have 2 physical evidence in the nature of spent cartridges. On behalf of the committee and on my own behalf, we would like to thank the media. Very soon our report will be made public by the authority concerned.
The Ejura Dumasi community in the Ashanti region on Tuesday, June 29, lost 2 of its youth, with 4 others sustaining injuries as a result of a clash between peeved protesters and police and military personnel during a protest march. Muntala Muhammad and Abdul Nazir Yusuf were shot in that engagement, which was to demand justice and accountability for the murder of their colleague Ibrahim Muhammad Kaka. The socialist activist on Saturday was attacked by unknown assailants in front of his residence. He was pronounced dead on Monday, June 28 by doctors at the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital, where he was receiving treatment. Following these deaths, the Interior Minister Ambrose Derry, upon the directive of President Akufo-Addo, instituted a 3-member committee chaired by an appeals court judge, Justice George Kingsley Kumsen, with a security expert, Dr. Entry Danso, and Juliet Amwa, the executive director of Pen Plus Byte, a civil society organization, as members, and Marie-Louise Simmons as the secretary. The committee was to, among other things, probe the circumstances which led to the rioting on June 29 at Ejura, which led to the death and injuries. The committee was initially mandated to submit its findings and recommendations by July 9, 2021. However, it requested for an extension of time to be able to finish with all its witnesses by July 16, 2021, and it was granted accordingly. The last witnesses who was supposed to testify on Friday, July 16, 2021, could not make it. Hence, the committee closed its hearing. Addressing the media after the official close of the hearing, the chairman of the committee, Justice George Kingsley Kumsin, assured the public that the committee would come out with a credible report and recommendations based on the evidence available before them.
Now, this boy should be beaten seriously. It's so annoying. Some journalists should beat the hell out of him. The president
Member of Parliament for Asin Central, Kennedy Ejapong, allegedly making threat on the life of Lave firm's Erastus Asare Donko. This since received public backlash as similar threats by Kennedy Ejapong somewhat resulted in the murder of investigative journalist Ahmed Swale. The Ghana Journalist Association yesterday condemned the act, saying this forms part of the impunity against journalists in the country and must be condemned. Afel Moni is president of the association.
It would be a fatal gamble to toy with the threats against the life of Erasmus Asare Donko. Every life is of sacred worth and intrinsic value. The right to life and personal liberty is of primordial importance, which all Ghanaians everywhere and at all times must enjoy. The life of Erasmus Asare Donko must be protected at all costs.
The Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Al-Hassan Suini, made a request for the Member of Parliament for Asin Central to be referred to the Privileges Committee over comments he described as contemptuous.
Mr. Speaker, I urge you to exercise your powers under 27 and refer this conduct of the honourable member, which is becoming unacceptable, to the Privileges Committee to ascertain the veracity of the comments that were made and recommend sanctions, if possible, that will act as deterrent for future, outings of the honourable member and other members who may be tempted to act like him.
Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin granted the request, cautioning members of Parliament to be mindful of their utterances outside the floor of Parliament.
The privilege and immunity of free speech applies in full force in plenary sessions and committee sessions, not when members are outside debating issues or on radio or TV. You don't have that right, that privilege, that immunity to just say anything because you are a member of Parliament. Not at all.
Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Fenyo-Makin questioned whether there was prima facie evidence for the referral. The Privileges Committee is chaired by the First Deputy Speaker, Joe Osei Wusu.
A $3.5 million separate facility from the same bank has also been laid for the purchase of vehicles by members of the Council of State. Meanwhile, the Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, has called on MPs to discontinue the practice where car loans are provided to them by the government. The former Deputy Education Minister believes that the government must provide vehicles for MPs as it does for MMDCEs, CEOs of state institutions, ministers, judges and civil servants. The Finance Committee of Parliament has recommended to the House to reject further loan facilities extended to members of the House to purchase vehicles. The committee, however, recommended the approval of the current loan facility before the House for the purchase of vehicles. The recommendation is contained in the committee's report, yet to be presented to the plenary. The government last week laid before Parliament a $28 million interest-free facility with the National Investment Bank for lawmakers to purchase vehicles. The MPs are supposed to repay the loan within 4 years. The state will also pay off 60% of the loan. The MPs will only be required 40% of the cost of the vehicles. A 13.5 million Ghana cedi tax waiver on the loan has also been approved.
Okay, welcome back. So that's the latest from the Metro Newsroom. At this time, I would want us to do reporter's blog. If we have that video ready, it's an interview we had with Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah. He's a governance expert and a former UN governance advisor. Okay, so yeah, that's for Ghana Moments. Let's have that video. He's been speaking about the Article 71 office holders of the 92 Constitution.
This debate has been hijacked by the political elite again. You see, when parliamentarians come to say, it's not good, or we need to get her to refund, or they forget that it's the same people, politicians, who, when they were caught to have taken double salaries, they fought back and killed it because they have the power to kill it, and they did. You see what I'm saying? So it's a very interesting phenomenon that we are facing. When they are in opposition, like the NPP, when they are in opposition, they have all the better ideas, and they criticize everything that the incumbent government is doing, and vice versa. So the idea of mobilizing civil society to effect changes, I think this is about the time, so that we can put the whole constitution on a drawing board for all of us to participate. Because you know the history of this constitution. Everybody knows. It's not a secret. It was a constitution that in many ways was drawn with limited participation by the people. The representatives and all that, we know, but you know what it was. Certain aspects were even smuggled into the constitution. We know that. Okay? So I think if we want to effect reforms in our country, including these so-called emoluments for Article 71 people, or if you want to include the spouses, all these things are minor. The biggest challenge we have is how we reform and make the constitution truly democratic. That is, I think, should be. So I'm hoping that civil society groups will pick it up, and they should not just be focusing on these isolated challenges that the Constitution provides, but the complete overhaul that will enable some real true reforms to occur. Otherwise, at some point, our democracy is going to be put on brakes. Because if you look at how these two political parties are behaving, the political elite, they are going to lead our demands. So we need to really find a way to save ourselves.
Welcome back, and that was an insightful conversation I had with Professor Bafo Agyeman-Duah about the Article 71 office holders. So just to kickstart the conversation and put it in perspective, what I want to do is to read out the constituents or the individuals that constitute the Article 71 office holders as we've been talking about. So I'll go to the 1992 Constitution. It will be displayed on your screen by my producers. We'll go to 71.1, that's determination of certain emoluments, the salaries and allowances payable, and the facilities and privileges available too. But let's focus on the who. Okay, so it starts with the Speaker and Deputy Speakers and Members of Parliament. B, the Chief Justice and other Justices of the Superior Court of Judicature. C, the Auditor General, the Chairman and Deputy Chairman of the Electoral Commission, the Commissioner for Human Rights and Administrative Justice and his deputies, and the District Assembly's Common Fund Administrator. D, the Chairman, Vice Chairman, and other members of I, a National Council for Higher Education, howsoever described, II, the Public Services Commission, III, the National Media Commission, IV, the Land Commission, and V, the National Commission for Civic Education. So these people, or these officers, are the Article 71 office holders that they've been trending, if I should say, all week. We've been having a conversation about them. So it brings us to the first part of our conversation, which I would like to dub the cost of democracy, whether or not this country or taxpayers can continue to hold up this cost. But let me introduce my guests as they are seated in the studio. I'll start with Ni Amate. He's a lecturer at the University of Professional Studies in Accra. Good morning and thank you for joining us. We're grateful to you for spending your time with us. Ni Ama Adi. So today I have two Nis in the house. That's cool. Ni Ama Adi is an educationist and also a fellow with the Center for Social Justice, and also Benjamin Antiedu, a lawyer, legal researcher, and author. Gentlemen, good morning. Ben, how are you? Good morning.
I'm good. You know, the weather is
yeah. It was difficult to wake up. I can imagine, but thank you guys, always being prompt on responding to our invitation as well. Thank you so much. The first question really I want to ask is, I'll put that question to you, Ni Ama Adi, and ask about the cost of democracy. The conversation about Article 71 office holders has been with us. Almost every 4 years we have this conversation. I remember, 2017, there were conversations about what the Constitutional Review Committee at the time had proposed, a review of that article. We've had conversations about it. The big question today about it is the fact or the claim of inequality that it establishes as far as the salary structure of the state is concerned. Has the time come for us to consider what many, including Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, have said, reiterated, scrapping this Article 71, office holders, and looking perhaps at an independent emolument commission that will create something more equitable?
I mean, it's been said time and again that the Constitution is a living organism, and therefore, if there is a need to change things to reflect the dynamism of society or how society is moving, then so be it, because we all want to continuously enjoy our peace, where public office holders would also get the benefit for the work that they do, and therefore they are not struggling and would have that peace of mind to do their work. And if emoluments form part of the elements that gives peace of mind for one to work, then we have to look at it. But the question again is, why do we have a Constitutional Review Committee with recommendations and then we fail to implement the recommendations or what the recommendations said? I remember during Professor Mill's time, we had a very huge constitutional reforms, which cost the state over some $500,000 or so, as we are told. And all the recommendations that were given, I mean, how many of those recommendations have been implemented?
Some of them were indeed accepted by the government white paper, moved into even the Mahama era from there.
Good, but how many of those? And some still hold the view that the most pertinent ones, which they think could have changed a lot of the things that we're going through today, were not attended to. I mean, if every 4 years we're going to come back to should it be changed, should it not be changed, I think that we should put the country first and put our minds around the issues and ensure that what is good for the development of the country is ensured at every time, irrespective of the political party that is in power.
Very well. I have MP for Bongo, Edward Bauer. He's just joined us. He joined us a while ago. He's on Zoom, I believe. Yes. Good morning to you, Mr. Bauer. Thanks for joining us. When it comes to the conversation about Article 71 office holders and the concern about equality, I'll put a full stop there, and I'll say that. But the interesting thing is, how do you feel as an MP who is part of the Article 71 office holders, but there is a slight difference when it comes to MPs. Correct me if I'm wrong. And how do you feel about that?
Thank you very much and good morning to my co-panelists. First and foremost, let me state very clearly that just as the initial speaker spoke about, our current constitution came at a time when I believe the drafters of the constitution felt that that was what was needed to give us some stability. And that was also needed to ensure that people who were supposed to discharge their duties in the service of the state, and for that matter the citizens, could go about doing their work very well. Yes, as to the disparity between Article 71 office holders and of course the general population is an issue that needs to be discussed, but it has to be discussed within the context of how any ordinary Ghanaian sees himself or herself. I know you have asked me a specific question about the MPs, but I just need to give a general broad discussion on this. You realize that, look, I have taken the pain, and this is my first public discussion on this topic, because I felt that it was a debate that as an MP I was not going to win, and therefore there was a need to first and foremost all agree that there must be a discussion, and if there's a discussion then we can look at the merits and demerits of all the arguments that are My very simple analysis of this particular brouhaha that has come up has been as a result of the fact that people generally have challenges when it comes to very basic needs. For example, a Ghanaian knows that he doesn't have a very good road, and therefore traveling from point A to point B is expensive and delays the person's time. He doesn't have the best of public service. He's talking about healthcare and it's not there. He's talking about security and he's not very secured even with his family. And so when the person has all these experiences and he opens to Article 71 and he sees that there are certain privileges and other things that are given to a group of people who are supposed to ensure that these basic needs are met, then the person gets frustrated. And so I understand the public outcry. The public outcry. But now to the specific question as to why, whether the MPs themselves, so even if you look at the whole thing, the MPs themselves also have challenges. Unfortunately, that is true. If you look at the holders of the, the Article 71 office holders, from the three I'm talking about the other two arms of government, the executive and the judiciary, to heads of institutions, for example, the head of Shiraj, Electoral Commission and the deputies, National Council for Civic Education, the Lands Commission, and what have you. You see that, unfortunately, the MP is always has the shorter end of the stick. But again, because of the fact that people do not know exactly the arrangements that have been made in the Article 71 office holders, the MP is always open to the bashing. And so, yes, if you, to your specific question as to, even with the holders, there's some level of discrepancies in terms of implementation. Because if you look at the Article 71 office holders, all the various emoluments and facilities that are needed to let the office holder perform his job is supposed to be charged on the consolidated fund.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is not the case with the MPs. Because if you say, and I'll just give you a typical example and what has generated some of these discussions. If you look at, for example, by our public transport policy, for every 5 years, vehicles are changed for these public offices. For every 5 years. And they are bought, maintained, fueled, chauffeured at the expense of the state. If you compare that to the MP is giving what we call government supported or maybe government guaranteed loan, and he has to pay for it to perform the same functions that the other holders of what we call Article 71, other office holders of Article 71 do. And so, but because, and I do not for a moment blame the public outcry or maybe the people, the reaction of the people, is because of the fact that sometimes we may not have abated our minds to the provisions that are there. So yes, and again, I want to agree with the first speaker. For me, laws are meant to serve people. And if people at one point in time feel that, look, we think that our current laws do not serve us properly, or maybe it's a bit unfair, it is only right that you subject it again to discussions. And I believe these were some of the things that informed Professor Mills' government when he then put up the commission to look at, to review the constitution. And I think that Article 71 aspect of it was also reviewed. Recommendations were made. I do know that there was a white paper that was issued to that effect. Unfortunately, we have not been able to implement that. And this is not the only white paper maybe we have not been able to implement as a country. And so I think that it is a discussion we must have, because that is the only thing that can give trust between the governed and those who govern. And so it is important to look at that. So that is my preliminary comments on these things.
Very well, thank you. I'll come back to the studio and speak to the secondly. For the conversation or for the aspects of the public outcry, could it have been communicated better? This whole conversation, what is it, every 4 years where we have the emolument committee adjusting salaries, emoluments of Article 71 office holders. It comes up and everybody, like the MP said, everybody is concerned about, well, my roads have not been fixed, why are we giving all this money? Could this conversation, which is constitutional, have been communicated better so that the public would then understand and whatever feedback or criticism will be well informed?
Well, I have heard, even amongst the parliamentarians, some form of disagreements. Okujetu Ablakwa, John Kuma, Dafia Mekbo, I think South Dai, and then a party person, the vice for General Mosquito. You know, they're disagreeing that these things should not be paid. But you know the difficulty I have, that Parliament will be made to understand as a law unto itself. Parliament makes the laws. So how come this faux pas continues to come up every time? And if there's going to be any form of discrimination, and I refer to it as a discrimination because it is against a certain group of people. And how come Parliament, of all the three arms of government, will be the one bearing the brunt of this, discrimination? I fail to understand this. And honestly speaking, I also question myself as to why at this discussion they decided that it should be discontinued after this particular one.
That's the MP's car loan.
Yeah. And I am saying this, that, this faux pas continues to come up. Parliament is gradually, I hope I don't commit a contempt here. But yeah, Parliament is gradually eroding that kind of reputation that goes with the House. Because honestly speaking, too many things come up and then it splashes around them and the debt remains and everybody tends to think that the Ghanaian peoples have forgotten about it. Look, after the war gone, West Wuogon issue.
Ayawaso West Wuogon, yes.
The woman was definitely referred to as Blood Woman. And then when it turned into a legal issue, they asked for the tapes. Parliament said they didn't have the tape of the people who referred to the woman as Blood Woman. Unfortunately, the media also did not help out in that, because I know Metro, for instance, you have that tape. But it was not submitted to the judiciary. I was surprised. Now, look at this issue involving the second Parliament handing over to the 8th, the 7th handing over to the 8th. What did we see? Military men entered Parliament to stop what they were doing. We all didn't like it. But till date, parliamentarians cannot say, and nobody can say who asked the soldiers to enter into the house. Parliamentarians cannot help us to unearth or unveil the face that ordered those people in there. Now, if you add this to it, that this faux pas has continued over time, every year, this loan will be given, every 4 years, this loan will be given, and then it turns out that they will be complaining and there will be public outcry. And then they'll come up to say, well, we're being discriminated against. But what are they doing about it? And is it serving somebody else's purpose? I don't know if we'll have the time to look at the so-called loan itself, whether it is a loan or not.
Well, that will be the second bit of the conversation.
But for me, I think Parliament should stand up and begin to dust off the dirt from its house. Because continually, we are having this conversation every 4 years. And for me, it is becoming too much. I think there has to be an end to this. Calling for the discontinuation by themselves, it is itself a debt on them. I'll explain that.
Okay. And we just heard Edward Barr talk about concerning the emoluments, talk about how, as well as the loan issue, MPs would have a shorter end of the stick. It would appear as though their power is receding, or Parliament is allowing its power, to be overtaken by the other arms. Do you agree? Does that appear to you like that?
In respect of the car loan? In
respect of the emoluments, the car loan obviously is embedded.
Yes, and I will want us to break the two, the emoluments and the car loan, because the car loan is a separate, it doesn't come within the parameters of Article 71. But talking about the emoluments, this is payment regime that is defined differently from other public servants in view of the level of responsibility and the positions. So as for discrimination, I share the sentiment of the learned lecturer, but to say that there's discrimination, that is where I find it a little difficult to understand. Because political positions and certain kinds of positions are to be treated, with certain differentiated conditions, so that it will be commensurate with the kind of risk decision-making, components that should go to that level. So if you look at the class of people there, the president, the vice president, the speaker, deputy speakers, members of parliament, you're talking about the chief justice and, justices of the superior courts and the heads of certain institutions. These are topmost positions. Their decisions on daily basis will affect us. We always complain about corruption. This is where, we can kill corruption, because definitely if the basic needs of man, are satisfied, the tendency for corruption will be minimized. And I think that is why the Constitution, the framers in their, wisdom, created this special kind of payment system. If there is a problem with it.
Benjamin, if I can just, pardon me to stop you in your tracks. I just want to put a few things before you. And I've had a number of interviews on this. First question really is, why is Article 71 entrenched? The likes of Professor Bafo-Agyeman-Duah raised the concern that it is creating a class system. The kind of adjustments that Article 71 office holders are getting every 4 years there's a wide gap between what other public workers of the country get. That's number one, the matter of discrimination or inequality. Even within the Article 71 office holders, there appears to be some discrimination within certain members. Edward Barr alludes to that. If in the reports, in the emolument reports that we're looking at, the Professor Yaa Ntiama, is it Yaa Ntiama Baidu committee report, talks about a recommendation against upping the salaries of an MP to that of a Court of Appeal justice level, for instance, because they currently are the High Court justice level, and there was a desire to have it upped. So you can tell that even within the Article 71 office holders, there appears to be some maybe discrimination in court or inequality in court, and then you bring it out to the public workers themselves.
Yes, and that is where I'm saying that there should be discrimination in pay. Yes, there should be, because you have different officers, different responsibilities. Somebody's decision at that level will cost the nation. If I'm a minister of state, I sign, international agreements. I negotiate on behalf of the state. If my conditions are not good enough, the temptation for me to be corrupt may be very high. Okay, and the kind of risk, you find ministers and members of parliament and other officials going to jail because of the very sensitive matters they handle, which may impact on the overall health of the nation. So as for pay differentials, it should be there. Talking about even within the classified group that are still differentiated emoluments, there should be, because they don't hold the same responsibility. Okay, and they are just trying to align so that the relativity will be reasonable. Align that, well, MPs will have a salary regime equivalent to this level, trying to peg here and there. But as for discrimination, it should be there.
And it should be entrenched as well?
The entrenchment, or, is just about the mode of amendment. There's nothing special about it.
But it's more restrictive.
Yes, so that if you want to amend it, it won't just be done by way of a mere parliamentary legislation, but subjected to the referendum of the people. And talking about ensuring a full-scale review of the Constitution, I'm all for it. Okay, so that here, the transparency is what in the determination of the emoluments. That is key to me, that the system appears to be closed within the presidency, the committee, and parliament. You don't have anybody seeing or shining a light on it. And that, to me, is the difficulty. Other public servants are paid by determination of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. They go through some consultations and some processes that appear to give light. But this particular one, there seems to be some closeness between these three elements. And a committee that is also composed by the president, to determine the salaries that the president will be affected. I think that there's a difficulty there. So moving from that, I agree. I agree that there should be some different mode of determination of the figures, so that it doesn't even come to Parliament for approval. Because if Parliament knows that, well, our component will be determined by the president, then we have to also make sure that we approve that of the president. That kind of system is what I'm against. But as for differentiated...
But that's the system we run, the scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Exactly the point. That's why I'm saying that I'm supporting the call for change in the kind of system that determines that. But to make the point and to stress, emphasize that as for pay level, it can never be the same. It can never be. This is a political election. Look at the cost of election in this country. And that, to me, is the most problematic situation that we are in now. We cannot fight corruption because of the cost of our elections. How much does it cost a member of parliament or person to get elected into parliament? Who will spend, so I'm sure my learned lecturer will work the whole entire life and will make about 1 million Ghana cedis. And you ask, just go and distribute these monies to people just to vote for you. And you think that I'm so angelic that when I come, I will take decisions that at the end of the day, I will not even be able to pay for the cost of my elections. And remember, it's not just a one-time payment. As soon as you win, or even when you lose, even they chase you everywhere you go. And this is the kind of system that we can't withdraw from. The Ghanaians should understand that the vote is a power that can never be measured, and that can never be, transacted with anything. So keep that vote for the person based on quality, expectations and the person's accomplishment and all that. If you vote for somebody based on the person's, ability to give money and all that, is that equivalent to ability to, push forward, bring your difficulties to the agenda of government? The MP's role is advocacy. And advocacy it is. At every point is advocacy. They tell you where we can lobby. And I ask myself all the time, I'm yet to see a member of parliament in opposition who will lobby for his road to be constructed. So that lobbying thing, and at the time of campaigning, you don't even know whether your government will win or not. So when you say you will lobby, who are you going to lobby? And does Ghana have that kind of money so that anybody who lobbied will be done for you? Let's define the role of the MP. Let's reduce the cost of parliamentary elections and hold our members that your pay is this much. It should be this. The person will say, oh, earlier we had a challenge of the low wages for the police. and some bribes were taken here and there, and you question and say, oh, our pay is not good enough. So now you up it through a single spine. Now you can question why they are corrupt.
Yeah.
So let's remove that. The cause of our election is the bane. Corruption and everything. Private people who have money come to support politicians. When they win, do you expect that a business person is a free giver? A business person, they will find every means to get the money back. So we pretend, we don't want to spend. But
so you're tracing the problem back to election
expenditure. The problem is election. Let's tackle that and make sure that if we are getting an independent body to even determine the conditions of the president, I'm for it. But until we clear these things, because you can have the MPs or the president money, maybe emoluments, by even half or even give a quarter. Can you be assured that no other money will go to him apart from the former one?
So for you, that's where the problem is, and it has to be nipped in the bud.
Exactly.
Nneoma, I'll come to you. Is it a burden that taxpayers can continue to bear?
I mean, I think the whole thing also is got to do with education, educating the populace. I mean, who are the people we put into parliament? I mean, what are they doing? And I always say that you look at two things. One, what a person is doing and what a person is capable of doing. I mean, we've seen members of parliament like Dr. Bannerman and the rest who were astute professionals and did not even take anything from parliament because they saw it as service to the people. But if everything, our lives, everything depends on what we are given as parliament, because maybe we weren't doing anything before, and we can't do anything. And let us not forget that...
Well, they said democracy is expensive.
Yes, but let us also not forget that parliamentarians are allowed to do other things, which means that the work of parliament is a part-time work. I mean, there are lawyers there who still goes to court. There are other professionals there who gets the permission of the speaker to still do...
Just a bit of alert to you that it's the conversation about Article 71 should not be limited to the MPs. Yeah, just not to
okay.
put them on the defense.
I mean, I've said clearly that let each earn what he works for, and therefore, if their work determines that they are paid X amount of money, let it be so.
Okay.
But the thing is that I mean, in the classroom, you'll be told that there are always 4 steps to any recommendations that are made. 1, it's either you accept it wholly. 2, you accept it with variations, maybe changing things. 3, you can accept it but say its time is not due. And then the 4th step will be to reject it completely. So we have to be very clear about whatever recommendations has been made about Article 71 public holders with specific reference to parliamentarians and what our response to it is, so that we'll all be very clear what it is. But if we leave it in the dark, like we want to do it, we don't want to do it, then that creates the confusion, and we'll always talk about it and we'll never find a solution to it. So let's be clear where we stand on the issue.
Okay, I want to take us to recommendation 18 in the Yaa Ntiamwa report, where they recommended some emoluments, some salaries be given to the spouses of president, vice president, and former president and vice president at the level of a cabinet minister. We know that, for instance, the First Lady, Madame Rebecca Akufo-Addo, and Madame Samira Bawumia have said that they no longer want it. They have indicated or given a certain evidence or notice to show that they are going to reimburse right from 2017 the monies that were given to them as allowances. So that would mean that what does that mean for this recommendation and the attempt to formalize it? And is it settled?
Yes, you can see that we called on our mothers, or the president in particular, to take a position on this matter, whether we're going to go to implement it or we're going to put a stop to it. Okay, and you find our mothers coming to say this is heartwarming.
The first and second ladies, you mean?
Okay, I mean, that's our mothers, I call them. So the first and second ladies, their actions are quite commendable. It's a good step, and that gives the clue to the president to say, no, I'm not going to implement it further. Because how would it feel? How would it appear to the ordinary person if the first and second ladies have rejected this and then you go ahead and keep it there. The government has to come and make the position clear, and that should go that we are putting a hold on it. If it has to be reconsidered, let it be reconsidered through the proper way. Through the proper way, because it came within the window of Article 71, which we have said that the foundation constitutionally is 40, and that if there has been an establishment of that office as a public office and payments are going there, it will be clear, and then it will be subject to debate, and there will be clarity on the matter. So we commend them, and we want the president to come out clear on this matter. But the core, I don't know if I can comment about the core to pay interest.
So I was going to ask you about
yes, as for that, is a little, my humble view is that it doesn't apply at all. Interests are paid when monies have unlawfully come to you. You have withheld monies that by law you're not supposed to take. But this one, there has been an appearance of a formality based on which they were paid. Okay. And then they are magnanimous enough to say that, yes, we are handing over the money, and you are saying that you pay. It doesn't arise. It doesn't arise at all. In the banking system, you can't even wrongfully be credited with some amount of money. They can only ask you to refund after you have spent it and not to pay interest.
Should then the former first ladies also then come and reimburse? Will that be necessary?
That will be their own voluntary action, but that as for payments already made, that one you will not constitutionally, you will not be allowed to vary the what has been established. So that can stay. But if the first and second ladies have come out to say they will refund, so be it. But there can be a stop from now onwards. I'm sure that from next month, nobody should be paid. Okay. At least let's keep it on that slate so that when the clearest determination is made, then we see the way forward. Okay,
I'll come back to a reference you made about the back door through Article 71. The minority in Parliament had criticized it and said that even in John Mahama, former President John Mahama's statement, that it was an attempt to sneak that in. There have been conversations that for any kind of amendments to Article 71(1) office holders. The first conversation was the legal bit about a bill, or we heard from lawyers that a bill should have come to Parliament to have that amendment made to include the first and second ladies. We also heard that, the fact that it is an entrenched provision means that any amendment should go through a referendum. So maybe settle the matter or address the matter for us. What really then would be the right vehicle?
The right vehicle, one is through amendment of this provision, Article 71. But
can you kindly turn? Sorry. Yes.
Yes, sorry. So yes, the first option is to go through Article 71, but is that the only? We can create these offices at so many places. To me, the better option would be to amend the Presidential Office Act. That deals with the office of the president. And these are officials operating there. My personal view is that the first ladies, second ladies, spouses of the president and the vice should not be paid for any reason. They come, they've been doing, if the argument is that they don't do any other work, that one is, they do a lot of work, but they do the work because we have closed them with some capacity. Because we have elected the president. They are relying on the position of the president to get something for the state and to enhance the presidency and the political aspirations of the spouse in power. So for us to be paid, then what about individuals who do charity work?
Okay.
They should not be paid for they shouldn't be paid.
Let me bring in MP Edward Bauer to weigh in on this conversation. Mr. Bauer, so what's your take on this matter of a certain, formalizing a certain payment to the first and second ladies who are not Article 71 office holders? It's appeared that might have been the vehicle to attempt to do this.
Francisca, before I answer that, I was hoping that I will comment just briefly on some comments that were made by the other panelists whilst they were making. So I think that it is important that I look at them. One of the panelists indicated that, look, over a period of time, it appears there has been some stain on Parliament because there are certain things that, for example, the invasion of Parliament by the military on the 6th of January, the issues of, the blood widow and other things. I can agree with him on that yes, as Parliament, we should be seen to to be proactive in some of these things because it sends some level of confidence in the general populace. That being said, it is also important to realize that if you look at the three arms of government, whether judiciary, executive, and the legislature, the legislature has always been the arm that has not had enough experience because of our long history of militarism. Every time you have an executive, every time you have a judiciary, you don't have parliament. So in terms of our parliamentary democracy, we are still, to a very large extent, still trying, we are at the infant stages. And that is one of the challenges that people must appreciate when they are looking at how parliament itself is trying to assert itself within the scheme of things. That's my comment on that. My second comment I want to make very clearly is, I think it's a lecturer or somebody who indicated. Look, let's go back to Article 98 of the Constitution. And with your permission, let me read what it says.
Very well.
They say a member of parliament shall be paid such salary and allowances and provided with such facilities as may be determined in accordance with Article 71 of this Constitution. 2, and this is the part that I want to draw the person's attention to. A member of parliament shall not hold any office of profit or emolument, whether private or public, and either directly or indirectly, unless permitted to do so by the Speaker, acting on the recommendations of a committee of parliament on the grounds of holding that office will not prejudice the work of a member of parliament, or no conflict of interest arises or will arise as a result of a member of parliament holding the office. Let me give you a typical example. I have worked, before coming to parliament, I worked on a World Bank project. I was working with a World Bank project under the Ministry of Energy. I have some level that with all the, if I'm given the opportunity, I would be able to work in any of these private energy companies. The question then is that in parliament, I'm a member of the Mines and Energy Committee. Will I be allowed to, for example, go and work for Car Power and at the same time be a member of parliament, or consult for Car Power and be a member of Car, when part of my duty in parliament is to ensure that they perform and perform very well in terms of supervision? So you realize that it is not a blanket statement using just, for example, just lawyers, that on the basis of the fact that lawyers can go to court and defend people, it means that it cuts across for everybody. That's the first point I need to make. The other thing that I need to talk about is that, look, people sometimes sit down, and it is based on the fact that my other colleague, the one who just spoke before me, indicated that the role of parliamentarian advocacy, which is key. Advocacy is very key. But one of the major roles of parliament is the approval of public funds. Every money that is spent in this country is supposed to be approved by parliament. And therefore, if you look at it from that angle, it is important that you don't put the parliamentarian in a position where he has to bargain his very survival with approval of monies. And that is why I think in the spirit of what they call it, the Constitution, they tried as much as well to ensure that the parliamentarian is also put at the same level where he can stand boot for boot in terms of approvals. Because, for example, I did just give you, just last week, we've been considering what they call the work program of GNPC, which is almost, if you look at it in terms of this, almost $600 and something million. That's almost about getting to, that will roughly be around 3 billion or what have you. I am sitting down there looking at those figures, and I'm supposed to approve them for them to go and expend within the 2021 fiscal year. Is it the case that I can be compromised to approve certain things that I should be able to question? If maybe I'm very vulnerable, even financially. I am just putting these things in place for people to understand that, look, people tend to look at our democracy, and democracy is very expensive. People tend to look at democracy as if, to a very large extent, it is just, oh, you have come, you approve. Yes, you can approve. But remember that, just as the colleague said, the person is a human being, and he's been positioned in a place to do something on behalf of the people. How have you positioned to make sure that you insulate him from influences? Because everybody, depending on the environment, can be susceptible to corruption and what have you. That was just the general thing I wanted to talk about. But now to your main question on the spousal payments that became a problem in our country. One, I acknowledge very clearly that over the years, if let's just take our democracy, just the fourth Republican democracy, first ladies have played very key roles in our society. From the Nana Konnedu's days when she was interested in daycares for villages. I know, for example, if you take my constituency, the sort of benefit people got just because of her activism in trying to empower women and then ensure that the girl child and what have you go to school. They're keen. You come to Teresa Kufuor, what she did. Then you come to Nadu, you come to Lodina, and then now we have Rebecca Akufo-Addo, who is also doing very marvelously. These are roles that they have played that to the very large extent Ghanaians have admired. The question then is that, do they need to be enabled to do that? I agree, I say yes. The fact that, and I believe that over the years, there may be some one or two allowances put here and there for them to be able to facilitate their work. The challenge is when you then take them and smuggle them into a particular provision in the Constitution, which is unlawful, and to a very large extent now peg them on a salary that is equivalent to a cabinet minister. I think that is where the core of the government of the argument is.
So look, for you, Mr. Bauer, what's the way forward then? We've had a conversation about the difficulty with using Article 71 as a vehicle. How then should the current dispensation, where the expenditure they incur will come from the office of the president, or we should look at some of the suggestions from Benjamin here, whether amendment or going back to the Presidential Office Act? What's your weighing on that?
Yes, I think that even as a formality, what we could do, if you look at the Office of Government Machinery, we could dovetail the role of the First Lady within that scheme of things. In fact, if you look at the people who go under the Office of Government Machinery, you have people depending on the role they play, and these are always based on the discretion of the government as to what will make the Office of the President work efficiently. We could look at that. It could be as a result of an amendment of an act. The only challenge is the fact that putting them under Article 71 office holders was illegal, it was wrong, and it was something that people felt that it wasn't right. But for me, I still believe, and that's why, again, the challenge was also that when the approval was made, there was a backdated form of it, that it should be paid from 2017 up till now. And that is one of the things that people also felt that, look, if you have taken a decision today, because it is not that they were entitled to those salaries and they never got them. You have just introduced that, look, these people should be given some salaries equivalent to that of a cabinet minister. Then suddenly, and because laws in themselves are not retrospective, then suddenly you think that the people should begin to start having the salaries from 2017. So the way forward is that we may have to find a way of trying to enable that office, the office of the First Ladies, to be able to work and work well. Okay. I am all for it. Okay. The challenge is that the mode in which we introduced it was very illegal, and that is what Ghanaians were very worried about.
Okay, let me bring in Niyama in concluding this first segment of the conversation. When it comes to the emoluments, the proposed emoluments for the first and second ladies, Benjamin has given some suggestions. We've heard from Mr. Edward Bauer. For you, what should be done going forward? It's interesting you say there should be a clear direction from the president. For you, what should be the way forward?
Well, see, it boils down to one thing. Let's regularize it. That's what brought about all of these problems. But
as in regularizing the current allowances they take? Well,
the regularization is why the president was saying it should be paid through this mode.
Okay.
So that's part of the regularization. But I think that we should define their jobs. Once their jobs are defined, then when we're paying them, we know. Look, the first lady that I admired so much was Mrs. Rawlings. She worked so hard, supported her husband in many ways, but it was all tilted towards a particular party idea. 31st Zima Women's Movement, 31st Zima Gary Processing, blah, 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 blah. And so no wonder when they left office, the schools she set up, all the teachers would have to be brought back to Ghana Education Service because it was a party thing. Now, if they are doing this, it has to be done in a way that you're doing this job and therefore you deserve this X amount of salary at the end of the month. But you see, I'm wondering why we're having this discussion on the first and second ladies and not talking about the past spouses of,
they are included. The recommendation covers them all.
And you see, the whole idea is we're giving them something without a definite description of what we're giving. Now, if one head comes tomorrow and decides that, well, I don't like such a spouse, so I'm going to reduce the amount being given to them. And that's why I think it's a laudable idea for us to look into this and then define it. But for the first and second ladies, their movements and salaries should be budgeted, because they could go beyond. I mean, the allowances, keeping their offices, running their cars, I mean, their clerical staff and all these things they
So
give
for you,
them.
starts with clearly defining their role.
Exactly.
Just quickly, do you think it was necessary for the current first and second ladies to reject and reimburse?
Well, I think that was a bit impulsive.
Okay.
It shouldn't have happened. The discussion is ongoing. Look, if you are sent to that height, you need to develop a thick skin. And these are part of the things that you need to be here. I mean, uproarious discussions from these public members of our land is something that should be encouraged. And so when you hear this and you decide to pay back, and then the second lady also decided to pay back, I think it's not the best. And for those calling for them to pay back,
the interest and all
funny.
that.
I think we should stop that. Look, when all of this is finished, I think the money should be paid back to them. It's not fair.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes, to follow from what Mr. Marty said, I mean, if tomorrow you have a first man, not a first lady, you have a first man who says that I want to mind my own business, I don't want to be following my wife's, I want to follow my wife around in what she's doing, and you've placed him under Article 71, which means that he necessarily has to be paid without any job description. When the man clearly have said that I don't want to be part of what we are doing, then what do we pay him for? We have to pay for a reason. Okay, so that reason must be clearly spelled out. And all those under Article 71 can be fired based on certain parameters that are set. Can we fire the first lady or fire the first man if that happens, if tomorrow we have a lady as the president? So that's the thing. And I mean, allowances are good because we all have agreed that they're doing something which is very visible and very laudable to the development of the country, so that they must be given allowance. But the second thing is, when they are out of office, the quantum of work that they do for the state reduces, so that we also have to see to the reduction of that money. Whatever we give them whilst they are in office must be reduced. I mean, let us not forget that that position are what? Ceremonial positions. And talking about returning the money, in Ghana you say that, oh, Ekpo. And when you do that, it's not fair to, I mean, our culture, to our sensitivity, and even to the office and the position that they hold. You don't do that. Does that mean that they will not take anything else which is given to them as allowance by the state? Or they will take other ones, and because this is in the public view, they've rejected it in the public view for all of us to see that they've done. I think that they have foundations. They all have foundations that they are championing. So my recommendation will be that they direct the money into their foundation to continue the good work that they're doing for us. And also, you have to look at the community. And if I talk about community, I talk about other first ladies who are also benefiting from the allowances that is given. I mean, what does that say to your seniors? I mean, to Madam Theresa, to Madam Konedu, to Madam Lodina, who are your seniors? What does that say to them? And that is what has generated people saying, okay, we've given it to you to bring the money. And I don't see why, I mean, men of, I mean, fine thinking should come to that decision and say, we have given it, you to call your people to give it. I mean, is that how we govern a state and ensure that there's equitable standards of life? So we have to do something about it.
Okay. Okay.
You know, I referred to something as discrimination, and my part here.
Please turn on your microphone. Thank you.
Yeah. So I referred to something as discrimination, and I want to clarify that. You
see, just quickly, because I want to go for
yeah. That point is the fact that when the other office holders, their maintenance of cars and vehicle changes, etc., are all charged, you know, from the consolidated fund. I mean, why should the MP be given a loan And that's where I find it very horribly.
That's the second part of the conversation.
Right, I'm sorry.
We're going to, very quickly, Mr. Barr, you wanted to say something very quickly.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, look, in terms of the first ladies, or maybe in future if we have a first gentleman, is the fact that, you see, remember that such an individual is politically exposed. So let's just give a scenario. A scenario where maybe the first lady was into supplying, before the husband became a president, was supplying food to maybe government institutions. Then suddenly the husband becomes president. Then she continues to supply that. Would you then look at the issue of conflict of interest? The fact that because of the positioning of the husband, this is being done. It is for that very reason that I think that first ladies, or in future, the first gentlemen, must be catered for. And it is not only in Ghana. If you take the United States, the first ladies are properly taken care of by the state to run certain specific projects they agree. Of course, their private sector also comes in very hugely. And in Ghana, it's the same. Unless maybe the information we get is not true. But you realize that in some cases, you see our first ladies really raising funds to put up maybe whether a hospital ward, maybe a school, and what have you. And mostly because of the stature they have and the association with the first gentleman or the first lady who will become a president, I don't know. Because of that stature, they are able to attract sponsorship to do certain things. The state must be interested in enabling them to do that. There must be a way of creating some funds for them to be able to work. The thing is that it must be formalized.
Okay.
So that we know that clearly in our minds, that we know that, look, when you become a first gentleman or you become a first lady, this is the type of things you are supposed to do. We expect you to do things this way. And again, I think one of the gentlemen said something. Look, in situations like that, when we define the possible roles they can play, because you may take a pet project that you want to do as a first gentleman or first lady, but we must define it that it must be within these particular laws, say that it is not seen as advocating or maybe advancing the fortunes of a political party using state funds.
Okay.
And so those things must also be identified. But for
I
me,
think Nia Martin made a similar point. I think
Yes,
Nia Martin made a similar point. Mr. Barr, I need to go on the break.
That's okay.
Okay, so please hold on. When we come back, I want us to talk about the discontinuation of the vehicle loan arrangement for MPs by the Finance Committee. But we're just wrapping up our conversation on the emoluments of Article 71 office holders, with specific attention being paid to the attempt to include, for want of a better expression, the first and second ladies, as well as the former. This is Inside Pages. I'm Francisca Kakrafos. So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation.
Masa, tam Maria, I'm kind of coffee. I am no more budget born again. Why? Have a beer, you can be able
logo the bottom. Where you say 80 local channels na mo hero. And so pictures here clear. They are 5 times better. As in other channels that could be sure. So go to mention one time why. Oh, what the pictures. What the picture? What do AD plus decoder or multi TV and now electoral agent PR natural local channels now HD the here so better star 879 hash numbers from Kubo box and now the advert AD channels now you can
get an HD Plus decoder from now till the 9th of August for just $89.99 Ghana cedis and enjoy 3 months free subscription. Enjoy all the excitement and live sports action in the HD Plus Air Bosso Philippines promo. Promo lasts from 7 June to 9 August 2021. Visit hd-plus.com.gh or call 024-243-9872 for more info.
Half a nose for good things.
We are one man short. Should we invite him?
Yeah.
It be old cargo. Can I join you guys?
Yeah.
Always drink fresh, natural, mix, mineral, water.
You still got it.
Always keep hydrated naturally. That's my secret.
Manufactured with the primary aim of preserving nature's finest minerals necessary for a healthy mind and body. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Are you tired as a consumer in Ghana when it comes to issues that confront you as a consumer? Worry no more. Kofi Capito, I'm here to give you the information, all that you need to make sure that your right is protected as a consumer. We have too many laws and agencies that should protect the right of the consumer. I'm here to give you the information that will help and assist you to get goods and services delivered to you without any worries. Watch the Capito Show on Metro TV.
The committee strongly recommends to Parliament the discontinuation of the current vehicle loan arrangements for MPs and Council of State members. Members of Parliament and members of the Council of State should have similar duty post vehicle arrangements as other Article 71 office holders. And the committee respectfully recommends that Parliament and the Parliamentary Service take the necessary steps to ensure that this happens. We are mindful, Mr. Speaker, as a committee, that our recommendations would mean that Parliament would have to urge this on the next emolument committee and also on the executive.
My plea to the population is that we are not in this house to cheat anybody, but they should be a little bit more sympathetic with us. When it gets to it, you recall the other day we had to get a president in place. A president, because if there was no parliament, there was not going to be a president. We stayed overnight from 9 o'clock to next day about 12 o'clock. We were in this house to make sure that the state, the nation, had an executive and president in place. I think we are doing very well. The little whatever is thrown our way, please.
Right Honorable Speaker, we can understand the sentiment. We can understand the anger of the people of this country. My position, and I believe the position of all of us, has been consistent. The position of Parliament, at least I can talk about the Sea Parliament, and the previous Parliament that I was not a member. I listened to members of Parliament who argued strongly. Don't give us any car loans. Provide the vehicles so that we can perform the service you ask us to perform as people of this country. That has been the consistent position. It is not an idea of us being admonished that we should demonstrate that we love the people of this country. That is our responsibility. Let's see that in our action. But I want to caution myself and caution our colleagues. When the cameras are before you, don't try to play saint. When the cameras are before you, don't try to pretend to be who you are not. Because we know the conduct of everybody. And if we begin to question the conduct of people, I really don't think that that is what the people of this country want. With this, let me challenge you and challenge myself that I agree that we should demand, don't give us any car loan, provide the vehicles. The other members of Article 71, they are provided with vehicle free, they are provided with a driver, the state provides the driver, pays the driver, provide fuel for them, pay for the maintenance of the vehicles. That is what we simply are asking for. We are asking us, treat us like any other member of Article 71.
Members of Parliament are rather sacrificing by bearing cost of the vehicle, part of the cost of the vehicle, and also taking care of the cost of the drivers, the fuel, the maintenance, the insurance, the cars, the tires we buy and put under the vehicle. Mr. Speaker, this education and debate must continue so that the public will know that the members of Parliament are not here to take money from government for their own benefits. So that the public will know that rather the members of Parliament are rather supporting government in the procurement of the vehicle. So that we can have vehicle to go to our constituencies and do our work as MPs. And we want to urge the media, we want to urge you to continue to educate the public. Mr. Speaker, it will surprise you to know that some media men who work in this parliament, when they were asked, what would the MP use a vehicle for?
Yes, so that's what happened in Parliament earlier this week. Just I want to read a bit of the Finance Committee's report. They're saying the committee strongly recommends to Parliament the discontinuation of the current vehicle loan arrangement for MPs and Council of State members. Members of Parliament and members of the Council of State should have similar duty post vehicle arrangements as other Article 71 office holders have. Gentlemen, we don't have much time on this quickly, but let me find out from Mr. Bauer, who is an MP. Is this alternative something that the state or taxpayers can foot the bill?
Thank you. Now, I was just, when you were making, I was just laughing on that. If you look at the mathematics of it, it is for a very good reason. I remember under the Akufo-Addo government, there was a proposal made to government that, look, instead of giving us car loans, go ahead, buy us the vehicle just as you buy for the judiciary and the executive, and let us use it. And after a 10 years, we'll leave it and go away. They did the mathematics of it and realized that that was going to be a huge burden on the public purse. And that was why they were ready to let Parliament sacrifice part of this, because the law basically says that those facilities that are supposed to be given to the member of Parliament to function must be charged on the public purse. Look, Francisca, I from Accra to my constituency is about 1,000 kilometers. I need to manage two offices. That is the one in Accra and the one in my constituency. Usually you will want to go into your constituency by Friday and return on Monday. If that is the case, you need to have facilities that will be able to let you go there and come back safely. In fact, before the early part of, that's 1992-93, go back and check the accident rates of MPs and people who died as a result of road accidents because of the type of cars and other things they were using.
Forgive my interruption. I don't have much time. Forgive me for this. But yes. So what's the way forward then with this recommendation from Parliament?
The way forward is that as the law prescribes, the law prescribes that we should be giving facilities, we should be giving the same duty post vehicles assigned to us to work with. If the public is not comfortable with what exactly is doing because of the optics of it, then government should go ahead in the next parliament, that is the 9th parliament, discontinue the loan arrangement, buy vehicles for MPs, give them their drivers, fuel it and maintain it for them to use it for their work. And that way, maybe Ghanaians will begin to realize the type of sacrifice that the MPs were doing hitherto.
Okay. That he's saying will cost us more than the $28 million we're looking at. But Ben, explain to me, so what, with this recommendation, we have an MP giving us an indication that it's going to cost more. So it's going to go back to the House?
Yes. In fact, this one, as the MP hinted, is clearly within the framework of Article 71, that they should be given salaries, allowances, privileges, and facilities. And of course, these are, collection of things that will enable them to work. So of course, they should be bought the cars to use. But the difficulty is the mathematics. From what he's saying, then it's going to cost us more. And then the difficulty of disposing them after the 4 years, because you don't expect that the new MP will want to use the car that has been used by the previous MP. And so, to me, this current arrangement where they pay a certain percentage of the amount will mean that as if they will use the car for 4 years, and then the purchase price of it will be the 60% or so that they are paying upfront. But the point is the lack of the transparency and then the knowledge, because how far has Parliament educated the people about this? Most of the things we do is because we are apprehensive that our finances are not being managed well. So the little thing you see there, it's natural that you complain. But if you all understand, and these things are available to the public, you can Google and find it, the conditions of MP there, it will be clear to everybody.
But it's not cast in stone. This is a recommendation.
Yes, this recommendation is in tandem with the constitutional provision.
Yes.
So in fact, you can even go to court and seek for the enforcement of this, that they should be bought the cars. So it is there. It's not something new.
Yes.
It is there.
Only that they are recommending to discontinue the current practice, so and rather go back to what Article 71
exactly
is saying.
The point. So we just apply
which Mr. Bauer tells us will cost us more. Gentlemen, let me have you weigh in on this.
Oh, well, I think Bauer has helped us a lot. Spelled out the pros and cons.
Please turn on your microphone.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so Mr. Bauer helped us by giving us the pros and cons of the whole scenario. But I think, things should not be done out of sympathy. From the way he explained it, it's as if, let's have sympathy on Ghanaians, let's pay 40% of the total, and then the government takes the rest. Why don't you capture it in law? You can do your own thing in Parliament and decide that, look, henceforth, parliamentarians will pay 40% up front. But what you're doing is an illegality. You're having sympathy on Ghanaians and then changing what the law says without actually taking steps to document it. And I think that's not the best way to go. Otherwise, I think it's a good thing from the way you explained it. If we are to go on to continue to buy cars for them every 4 years, the nation and the government is broke. Government is so broke that, look, I fear how NIB is going to cough up this amount. And I fear we're not going to break the financial spine of NIB the way we have done to Ghana Commercial Bank. Yeah.
No, but if, as the MP said, Article 71 office holders are supposed to be provided certain things, and you come and use the car that is meant there for you, how would you say that somebody has used it for 4 years, so you don't want to use it? Because that is what is provided for you. So yes,
it gets interesting.
Yeah, you can't say that.
Let me chip in a bit. Look, even reverend ministers, when they take up new positions in new houses, they change beds, they change seats.
Yeah, that's the indiscipline. That's the indiscipline that we find. Because if
just a quick one from Mr. Bauer. Yes, Mr. Bauer.
You must look at that as against the public transport. The transport policy of this country. The transport policy of this country says that for every 5 years you change vehicles. Go and look at Lands Commission. Go and look at Shiraj. Go and look at EC. Every 5 years it is changed. Go and look at the judiciary. Every 5 years. That is the transport policy of the state. And so if you do that, what it simply means is that after the 4th year, the 5th year that you are going to turn, it will be the next MP who will come in. So you will change the car. Unless you want to change the public policy and the transport policy of the whole state. That's another thing you can do. And of course, as long as it becomes a policy, then you can deal with it. So it is not the fact that, because this is the case, the issue is that you have come and this is the car they've given to you. If you give a car that cannot move from here to Bongo, how then do you manage it?
Okay.
Honorable Bauer, so can we say for a fact that everybody is going to buy the car? Can they say that all those who are going to collect the money will all buy the car?
If you do not buy, you will be prosecuted. Indeed, it is the basis for which Ayarga was sent to court.
So the point I'm just trying to make is that you are supposed to buy it. Indeed, you don't even get the money. Look, let me give you a typical example. Since January, they've been deducting about 7,000 Ghana cedis from my salary. Just for this time, when I have not even gotten the loan yet. Now the money is sent, and then there are approved vendors who are brought to Parliament, and they procure the thing for you. So you don't even get the money.
Wow.
They procure it for you, and then you pay. And listen to something. So you see, this is my vehicle, maybe my vehicle that I use in the 7th Parliament. Assuming that after this payment, if I decide that I am going to have I am going to dispose of it, I have to go back and pay the duty for it.
Oh.
Hello, can you get me? I have to go back and pay the duty for it before I can dispose of it.
Wow.
So that is the arrangement.
Okay.
I think we have to look into the policy.
Wrap up in 20
yeah, we have to
seconds.
look into the policy again, because I mean, laws are made to suit the society. I mean, let's all come around again and think through the issues again. If what exists is what is okay for us, so be it. If there is a need to make amendments, let's do it and let's go on. After all, the country is bigger, and we can all see what problems confront us with the finances of the state. Scarce resources must be used very well. So let's look into it again. That's it.
Yeah, very well. And Mr. Bauer, I think I have to come by the office and have a sit-down interview with you. There's a lot to be said, obviously, from what you're saying, but we're grateful. I want us to take a break. When we come back, I want us to talk about education and 34 million cedis that was spent to procure past questions for WASSCE candidates. This is Inside Pages. Send your messages. I'll read the messages when we come back, so do keep them coming. Stay with us for the next conversation.
Logo the bottom. Where you say 80 local channels na mo hwe. And so pictures near clear. E 5 times better. As other channels can go be sure. So go the mention mo tram rock why. Oh, what the pictures. What a picture. What do AD plus decoder or multi TV and now Electroland agent PR. Let your local channels now HD the here so better. Star 879 hash. Numbers from Kubu box and now the advert AD channels now.
Get an HD Plus decoder from now till the 9th of August for just $89.99 Ghana cedis and enjoy 3 months free subscription. Enjoy all the excitement and live sports action in the HD Plus Air Bosso Philippines running. Promo lasts from 7th June to 9th August 2021. Visit hd-plus.com.gh or call 024-243-9872 for more info.
Half a nose for good things.
We are one man short. Should we invite him?
Yeah.
It be old cargo. Can I join you guys?
Yeah. Always drink fresh, natural mix, mineral water.
still got it. Always keep hydrated naturally. That's my secret.
Manufactured with the primary aim of preserving nature's finest minerals necessary for a healthy mind and body. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Welcome back to Inside Pages. We'll now turn our attention to the third conversation for the day. That's what government spending 34 million cedis on past questions for the 2021 WASSCE, that's West African Senior Secondary Certificate Examinations. For this conversation, we've been joined, we have an additional guest, that's Kofi Asare. He's the Executive Director at the Africa Education Watch. Kofi, good morning to you.
Hi.
And I've been a lady, I've given you my seat. But good to have you in the studio.
Yeah, that's kind of good morning to your cherished audience as well.
Great. Kofi, I'll start with you. I know the knee's already itching to, have a bite on this, but I'll start with you, Kofi, especially because of the statement that you released. For you, the concerns were really about the copyright that we understand was given to Kingdom Books and also the procurement deal with Kingdom.
Exactly.
So talk to us about that.
Well, our issue is within the context of spending efficiency.
Okay.
In Ghana, one of our biggest challenges in the education sector is spending efficiency. In the midst of scarce resources, how you use the little available to you is key. This year, if you look at the Education Strategic Plan, which is our blueprint for the next 10 years, till 2030, the amount of money required to finance education is in excess of 19 billion cedis. But how much is readily available or really available this year, budgetary and non-budgetary, is less than 15 billion. You got about 13.4 from the budget, and then Get Fund brought in 1.4 billion. Unfortunately, 60% of Get Fund went to pay for interest on loans. So if you look at the envelope, the KDA available in financial education is less than 15 billion. So there's a financing gap of about 25%. Now, the reasons why we have a financing gap today has remained for over 2 decades. So every year there's a huge financing gap. And the consistent presence of financial gaps in our education budgets over time is why you see schools existing under trees, why we have 5,000 schools under trees. It's the reason why we have 4,500 primary schools without junior high schools. For which reason one will have to travel miles to the next community and possibly drop out. That is why 20% of students who start kindergarten 1 drop out at the basic school level. So you see, the issues we keep discussing every day are symptoms of a systemic issue, which is the lack of adequate resources. Why? Because the resources we have are always misapplied. Which is within this context that we see the reasons given by government for subjecting such an important deal through a single source procurement method to be unacceptable. Because His Excellency the President in 2012 and 2016 came on the back of the NDC government having internalized or mainstreamed the culture of restricted tendering and sole sourcing in the public sector. In 2012, during the IA debate, he was succinct on that. And he was right, because those approaches do not assure not value for money per se, but spending efficiency. But in the past 5 years, if you go to the education sector, you need a microscope to find a major procurement activity that was competitively tendered. So you see, we are not paying attention to the spending inefficiency issues that has bedeviled the sector for decades. And we are repeating, if not even aggravating the issue. And that is why we find the excuse for single source being Kingdom Book and Stationery having a copyright to be, again, untenable and unpatriotic. Why unpatriotic? The Ministry of Education is the oversight agency for WAEC. Let me explain it this way. Okay. WAEC is an agency under the Ministry of Education. That's number one. Number two, WAEC is funded by the Ministry of Education. And the MOE sits on WAEC board. So, why was the Ministry of Education last year, when this thing started, interested in rather supporting or facilitating a private company's copyright, if you like, supporting by investing in it, giving them a contract, instead of the ministry rather obtaining the permission from WAEC to perhaps ask Assembly Press, government's own publisher, to print the past questions and the answers and then the examiner's report for the student, or at worst, engaging governments, over 100 publishers who have been publishing textbooks for government every year to competitively bid, and let's have some spending efficiency. Why didn't the ministry secure the permission directly? Or why didn't they do it this year? So have we agreed that we have tied our umbilical cord to
So you smell a rat?
Obviously, the best interest of Ghana is not pronounced in this deal. The interest being served now is the interest of Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited, because our excuse is that because they have the copyright, we are going to follow them. They will dictate to us every day because they are the copyright owner, and then we are going to single source them every year. And bear in mind that Kingdom Books and Stationery is not even a publishing house. They are a bookshop. They sell books of publishers, and these publishers are in this country. That is the issue we have with the
I'll come back to you, Kofi, on the recommendations that you have, but you can have your bites now.
I mean, this decision is clearly a thievery of systematic non-reasoning into leadership and management of education. You want me to repeat it?
I think I got stuck on thievery.
Yeah. It's a complete statement. I say it's a thievery of a non-effective reasoning into effective leadership and management of education. I mean, just as Kofi has said, I mean, look at the deficits that we have. Look at the lack of educational resources that we have. Is this the time that we should not be able to systematically and sequentially think into the decisions that we make? I mean, what are past questions? And look at the time that the questions are given. I mean, we are in middle of July now. Has the questions been given? When will the exams be written? So you're saying that you're going to give them past questions for 1 month, and what are they going to do with it? Chew, pass, pour, pass, and forget? Is education just for examination, or education is for life? I mean, if we're training them, I mean, this morning we were invited to this studio. We got up early, we bathed, we drove from our house, we came here, and that is what education does. It takes you through a systematic development of life. So that if we say that we are not training these students for life and that they should pass exams so that we'll be happy that this number of students have passed exams, then we jump in everything that goes into complete education. Okay? So that if what we are being told, so much money that is being spent, is what it is and what they intend to continue to do, then I find it very wrong. One, what are past questions?
If you can keep it brief for me.
Okay, one, what are past questions? Every senior high school in Ghana writes WASI, and they all have the past questions in their libraries. It's the same teachers who are the examiners, and they write those examiners' reports, which now seem to be like a Greek mythology that has to be broken down into publishing and all those things. The past questions are in the school libraries, and in any case, a proper teaching would mean that in curriculum planning, maybe the last semester of the term, which is 6 months into the exams, there is an insertion there which says that questions and answers in an examination. So a teacher of that subject comes in. And let us not forget, we're talking about only 4 subjects. But there are other subjects to pass. We're making it as if once you pass those 4 subjects, then it's automatic to enter the university.
Let me bring Benjamin in. Benjamin.
We need more time.
I'm particularly interested in the copyright concern, but let me have you weigh in on this conversation, which Kofi has spread out the issues, the procurement deal itself, and the copyright mandates given to Kingdom Books.
Okay, I'm not privy to the kind of documentation that senior is privy to, so I will be limited in that sense. But generally about the relevance, you know, the whole free senior high policy should be relooked at. You see, I had a conversation with a colleague and he said, I said it is not a cost to be borne at all, because you see, remember last year when some students were disappointed that the questions did not drop. Some went to the point of even insulting the president. Why, as I have had a little taste with teacher training, and if you want to do serious training, it's total education that you give. When you focus on past questions, you are limiting the students, so that it's only the parts that have dropped in exam that they will be focusing on. If you are saying that mock examination cannot replace this kind of purchase, we are not being honest with ourselves. Okay, every library has this. Every teacher must have past questions every year. And then they can do, based on their teachings for a particular semester or how they prepare the students, come out with a selection of these questions and take them through. But if you give this whole booklet of past questions with answers to a student, what are you telling the student? Go and chew this, pour, and get excellent grades, and we get the kind of products that we worry about every day. We create unemployment through this. So the whole psyche, the relevance for this purchase is, to me, it should not be allowed at all.
Mr. Martin.
Well, thank you. And the profession I find myself in would allow me to say that, yes, past questions are good. I mean, when you have taught, you want to refer them to the questions so at least they look at them and then, yeah. But like we're saying, it's left for the teachers to then have the questions so they could select based on their experience, like you're saying, for them to select those questions and then decide. But you see, our mannerisms in terms of what we're discussing now is the reason students of all schools have become more like career question students, I should say. How am I explaining that? See, you begin to teach at the beginning of the semester, the very first time you meet your students, and one of the likely questions you are expected to hear, like as a lecturer, is, "Sir, how is the question going to be like?" I mean, I've not taught. We've not even discussed anything. It's more like two boxers meeting for the first time and, weighing shadowboxing. Yeah, shadowboxing. And then you pose such a question. You see, so we are helping them to focus more on a certain direction, which is not as important as now. Give the questions to the students, and we're not even talking about completing the syllabus. And that's where words like Bele came into the students' discourse when the questions didn't drop. So what are we doing? What are we doing unto ourselves? And how come that for every little opportunity that we get, we tend to make the public think that we're making some hidden amounts for our own pockets? I mean, 68 million.
It's a lot of money.
And the millions of cedis and of dollars, based on looking at what we started with and where we are now, the discussion this morning I'm talking about. You think it's as if we're talking about pesos. Why are we doing this unto ourselves? And he was talking about the gaps and the interest on loans and stuff. Look, do you know, if you read the Oxfam report for after the elections,
inequality report,
one of the areas said 300,000 Ghanaian women, children, and men could have been taken out of poverty if we had managed our resources properly. And another one says public debt servicing cost the Ghana government so much in a year that could have paid for all Ghanaians quality health services and delivery. I mean, what are we doing to ourselves?
It comes back to management, as Kofi is saying, what we are managing. I want to just, before I get to Mr. Bao, and I'm told that we've just been joined by Ernest Nogbe, that's MP for Ashaman I just want to read a quote from the Education Minister when he was in Parliament. He said, Mr. Speaker, the procurement process for the supply of published textbooks to basic schools is currently ongoing. The ministry placed an advert in the Ghanaian Times on 1st June 2020 where various publishers approved by NACA submitted their books and relevant documents to be taken through a pre-qualification procurement process. Mull over it for me, Kofi, if this is adequate. Let me quickly go to Mr. Bauer. Obviously, the minority was not happy with this, the presentation made by the minister and the discovery of the amount spent. Correct? I'm correct, right?
Yeah, you're correct. Francisca, look, let me just give you some figures. So in 2020, the government procured 568,755 past questions. And the total amount was 33,644,043. So it means that it comes to a unit cost of 59 Ghana cedis per question paper. In 2021, now listen very carefully, the government procured 446,958 past questions. And the figure then came to 34,862,412. Now the unit cost moves from 59 pesos to 58 cedis to 78 cedis.
Okay.
And this goes to point, support the argument that was made by is it Kofi? I'm talking about the Education Watch.
Yes.
About efficiency of the procurement process. If you are spending roughly a little above 68 million Ghana cedis on past questions, when in most of those schools, even textbooks becomes a question. I remember when I was in secondary school, I went to St. Charles Minor Seminary. Now, when you every year there was the chief examiner's report that was brought to the school. Your library has past question papers. Your subject's master goes through and when he's getting to exams, he takes the chief examiner's report and then draw your attention to the areas and the type of questions, the way people were approaching questions. And then based on your general knowledge of the particular subject, then tells you that if you have a situation like this, how you go around it. Okay. Based on the recommendation that have been given by the chief examiner's report. Now the question I ask myself is, and there has been a debate on, and I believe
Mr. Bauer, just to get back to the figures that you put out. The point was about paying more for less, correct? When you brought the figures okay.
Yes, but if you look at the 2020, we're paying 59 Ghana cedis per paper, per question paper. Now in 2021, we're paying 78 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
And procuring, that means we spent more and we procured less and spent more.
Okay, please conclude in 1 minute because my time is almost up. I want to give the remaining time to Kofi. Yes,
so the point I'm just trying to make is that, look, I think the government priorities generally are not right. Two, I believe that the essence of all this exercise, in my very humble opinion, is to create some resources for a group of people. It is not meant for the benefit of the students. But what this clearly tells us that we are bringing our students who can maybe pass exams, and when you bring and tell them to just give you 2 paragraphs, send it, or a particular thing, you will have to correct the whole page. And I'm so sorry about that where education is going now, if we're not very careful, we'll really find ourselves wanting.
Okay. Kofi, I'll give you the final word. Let's go through your recommendations. You're looking, in terms of looking at the way forward.
Well, before I move to the recommendation, let me say that within 24 hours of issuing the statements and engagements, the ministry has announced that next year is not going to print past questions. We have recommended that past questions come in the form of textbooks, 400-page, 450-page textbooks. So why wouldn't you use the same rules and governance systems that, that govern the use of textbooks to apply to past questions, so that every 3 to 5 years you buy new past questions? That is what we do for textbooks. They are replenished after every 3 to 5 years. And so that is one. We also realize that, and it's an emerging issue By Monday, we'll update the Ghanaian public. But as at now, about 56 schools that we've spoken to, all of them have their past questions intact. Indeed, there was a directive from the genius to school heads to collect all past questions. So the rationale behind purchasing new past questions being that students took them away cannot be true for the 56 schools we've spoken to. And no school has indicated that the students took them away. Again, we have recommended to the ministry.
We need to investigate to find out.
They are all sitting in the bookshop. Go to the schools, you find them. And thirdly, we have recommended to the ministry that in subsequent years, if the next one is going to be printed even in 3 years' time, the Ministry of Education should obtain the copyright from WAEC, if any such copyright even exists, because in the WAEC law, there's no mention of copyright. If we read Act 719, there's no copyright mention there. But if there's any subsidiary agreement between MOE and WAEC, which grants that copyright to WAEC, whatever it is, we need to see the copyright and see whether we actually need copyright to produce copies for academic purposes, not for profit purposes.
Yeah.
And then competitively procure past questions or use government-owned publisher so that we can make very, very high levels of spending efficiency moving forward. I think once we do this, let's have it at the back of our minds that the problems in the education sector are two. The rest are symptoms. The first one is poor management of human resources. That's why teachers are not properly deployed. That's why teachers are not properly supervised. That's why they are not properly motivated. So the first problem in the sector is poor management, especially human resources. And the second one is lack of spending efficiency.
Okay.
All the rest that we talk about every day are symptoms of these two systemic challenges. And so let's embrace a culture of being very, very frugal in spending public funds, because we don't have the luxury of surplus funding in the education sector. This advice goes to the ministry.
Okay, thank you, Kofi, for that. I want us to draw the curtains, but let me do a few messages before we go. Good morning. Before it came out that government pays 60% of the principal plus interest, I thought it was very unfair to the MPs. He's speaking about the car loan, I guess. But having known the fact, it is rather more juicy than what the executive and judiciary and other public officers get. This is from Ras Akito Esreso Adeja. He says, can the First Lady come out with the projects she embarked on when her husband was in opposition? I guess she wasn't First Lady then. This is a notice coming from the Health Ministry, I believe. It's it's a public safety notice concerning what? A possible bird flu. Let me just read the details. What I have here is scanty, but I'll just quickly read it. It says, report any unusual death of domestic poultry and wild birds to the nearest veterinary office and public authorities. Avoid the handling of dead birds with bare hands at all costs. Consume only well-cooked poultry meat and poultry products. We'll put this on social media so that you can get access to it. But a happy birthday to Mr. Kwao Ansah. He's a renowned filmmaker, received many awards. We want to say happy birthday to you. But this has been our show. It's been a very interesting conversation with the gentlemen. Gentlemen, I'd like to say a big thank you. I don't know if I have time to mention everybody, but on Zoom and also in the studio, grateful to you all. Mr. Kofi Asare will be in touch for subsequent developments on this story. But thank you for coming in, and thank you all so much for watching and sending your messages. I couldn't read everything, forgive me, but keep them coming nonetheless. Enjoy the rest of our programs, but for right now, it's bye-bye from me. I'm Francisca Kakra-Forson. Thank you for watching.
They shouldn't depend only on the past question, because sometimes the past question, they can just get something small. If you are not, like, you don't read ahead or you don't read far, then they just twist the question somehow, or you see that you'll be found wanting.
I would rather say that the government should use that money for something beneficial, because we are in hard times, very trying times. The youth are suffering, and I even foresee an uprising on the part of the youth, because most of us will go up and down without jobs. But guess what? The things in this life are so demanding.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.